and welcome. I'm Asuma Katauka and you are watching China Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the headlines. China removes 9 senior generals including He Weidong and Miao Hua over duty and financial crimes. The move combines anti-corruption with political realignment ahead of the party's 4th plenum. Taiwan's President William Lai has announced plans to build a T-dome missile shield modeled after Israel's Iron Dome to protect the island from potential Chinese attacks. However, critics question its feasibility given Taiwan's diverse missile systems and limited resources, even as Lai promises to boost defense spending and use AI technologies. Nexperia has withheld access to work accounts and halted salaries for its employees in China, marking the latest escalation in a growing political dispute between the Netherlands and China. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has declared that the war in Gaza will not end until Hamas is fully disarmed and the territory demilitarized. His statement comes as Hamas handed over the remains of 2 hostages yesterday. Millions of Americans have rallied across all 50 states in No Kings protests against President Donald Trump's hardline policies, with organizers claiming attendance of 7 million nationwide, as protesters criticize that President Trump's actions pose a threat to U.S. democracy. President Donald Trump has announced that the U.S. struck and destroyed a drug smuggling submarine in the Caribbean, killing 2 suspects and repatriating 2 survivors to Ecuador and Colombia, claiming the vessel carried fentanyl and other drugs. While the Colombian President Gustavo Petro has confirmed the 1 suspect's return, but has criticized Washington of killing an innocent fisherman and violating Colombia's sovereignty, as tensions rise between some South American nations and the U.S. An Air China flight from Hangzhou to Seoul made an emergency landing in Shanghai after a lithium battery in a passenger's carry-on bag ignited mid-flight. The airline has confirmed while no injuries were reported as crew quickly extinguished the fire. Now we start with Taiwan. Taiwan's Ministry of Defense has reported that it has tracked 27 Chinese military aircrafts and 8 naval vessels operating close to its territorial boundaries. The ministry has stated that 19 Chinese aircrafts have crossed the median line of Taiwan Strait, entering the northern, central, and southwestern parts of Taiwan's air defense identification zone. Meanwhile, the Taiwanese forces have stated that they have been monitoring the situation closely and had taken appropriate response measures to safeguard national security. Earlier on October 16th, Taiwan's Ministry of Defense had reported 21 Chinese aircrafts and 9 naval vessels. The ministry had stated that 16 fighters and KJ-500 early warning aircraft participated in joint air-sea exercises alongside Chinese naval vessels. Now for this discussion, we're joined by Ross Feingold. He's a political analyst, joins us live from Taipei. Thank you, Ross, for joining us. Good to see you. Ross, now looking at these recent incursions or recent spottings of a lot of Chinese vessels in near Taiwan, how do these escalations impact Taiwan's current stability and its defense potential response or defense mechanism?
Well, it doesn't really have any effect on the stability of Taiwan. Frankly, these daily incursions have no effect on business as usual activities. People go to work, people go to school, people enjoy their weekend. So for the population at large, this really has no effect on their lives. However, it puts a tremendous amount of pressure on the military because the Taiwan military has to fly its own planes and sail its own ships to monitor what the Chinese are doing. And this costs a lot of money. It's wear and tear on the equipment, and it's very tiring on the personnel. And the Chinese know that, and that's one reason why they continue to do this.
And just a few hours ago, or just recently, we saw this news coming in from Taiwanese government that they're eyeing to make something like Iron Dome of Israel. How feasible is that, and can Taiwan afford it right now?
I think you've identified two of the key issues. Now, whether it's feasible or not, the answer is probably yes. Taiwan, of course, is well known for its technological capabilities. There are very brilliant engineers and related talent here in Taiwan. And the Taiwan government certainly has the money to pay for it, although it would have to take funds away from other potential priorities. So those are the issues. It will take time, and it will take a lot of money. And it's possible the U.S. Might assist as well, the U.S. being Taiwan's main foreign weapons supplier. But if there's a willingness to put in the time and spend an enormous amount of money, then sure, it's possible.
And do you think that there will be potential responses or roles that international players like United States or Japan will play in deterring further military provocations near Taiwan?
That's an interesting question because the U.S., of course, has activities in the South China Sea. It sometimes sails its naval aircraft through the Taiwan Strait. Japan, periodically similar actions, but certainly far less than what the United States does. But none of that deters China. So when China says they are enforcing their own sovereignty claims, whether that's in the South China Sea, or in the Taiwan Strait, or the East China Sea, the actions of other militaries, whether that's U.S., Japan, South Korea, Australia, the Philippines, nothing they do deters the Chinese military from taking the actions that they want to take. So it's a really interesting question because one could say, well, why isn't the U.S. doing more? The U.S. does a lot, and it's possible that it could do more. But there's always going to be somebody who says more military activity by the U.S. or Japan or South Korea or Australia, the Philippines, is only going to escalate the situation.
Right. Thank you, Ross, for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we come back to you. Now we stay on this topic. Taiwan's main opposition party, the Kuomintang, has elected a former lawmaker, Chang Li-won, as its new leader. Chang has pledged to ensure peace with China. Chang has laid down 3 principles that the Kuomintang believes Taiwan should adhere to. She has further stated that there can never be any military conflicts in the Taiwan Strait, and that it is irresponsible to use the red label, the color of China's Communist Party, as a tool for political struggle. Let's listen into what she has said.
我们一定坚持3大原则。第一，我们绝对不能够让台湾成为麻烦制造者。第二，我们也绝对不让台湾沦为地缘政治的牺牲品。第三，中国国民党会担起责任，积极地为区域和平做一个和平的缔造者。这是我们对国际社会最庄严的承诺，这也是我们最重要的3大原则。大家面对2300万人，应该共同的拿出善意跟诚意。两岸的和平不只是两岸人民最高的期待跟福祉，也是区域甚至于是人类和平最重要的一个任务跟工作。台海绝对不可以发生冲突跟军事冲突，所以请不要这么轻易、不负责任的、廉价的拿红色标签作为政治斗争的工具。
While the KMT lost the presidential election last year, the party and its ally, the Small Taiwan People's Party, together hold the most seats in the Taiwanese parliament, playing a significant role in influencing legislation. Taiwan will hold mayoral elections next year, which will mostly focus on domestic issues, but will be an important measure of support ahead of the 2028 presidential vote. Now for this discussion, we go back to Ross Feingold. He's a political analyst, joins us live from Taipei. Thank you, Ross, for staying with us. Ross, does this individual, does her being a candidate or being a mayor change anything in relations with China?
It's too early to tell, but the key thing is, even though her political view is to have more dialogue with China, the reality is her party doesn't control the government. The government's controlled by the Democratic Progressive Party of President William Lai, and his views on China relations or Taiwan's relationship with China is significantly different than the new KMT or Kuomintang party chairwoman Zheng Liwen, who was elected last night. So she could try to have dialogue with China, but again, that would only be in the role of an opposition party leader, and it wouldn't be representing the government of Taiwan.
And how is her peace-oriented approach seen or viewed in Taiwan? Is it more popular, or do people criticize it? How does it look like over there?
The voters tend to swing back and forth in recent elections on this issue, so it's frankly a bit early to tell how this would play out in the upcoming local elections about a year from now, November 2026, or the national elections in January 2028. But there's certainly a segment of society here that feels that the government of the Democratic Progressive Party has been too aggressive in creating tension between China and Taiwan. But there's also many people here who say, no, it's China that is the threat, and we have to safeguard Taiwan's sovereignty. And often the voters of Taiwan are pretty evenly split on which is the best approach to take.
And Ross, can you tell us more about what this KMT's rejection of the red labor rhetoric, what does this mean?
The Democratic Progressive Party, which is the ruling party here in Taiwan, their politicians or media aligned with the Democratic Progressive Party, they often accuse the Kuomintang of being too close to the Communist Party of China. So they use the red color and say, oh, you're pro-red because you're too willing to talk to China, even though China is threatening to Taiwan. Is a threat to Taiwan. So this is a kind of an insult, and to say, you're too red, you're too close to China, you're not protecting Taiwan. And it's a label that the DPP often uses on the KMT.
Right. Thank you very much, Ross, for joining us and sharing that insight. Now we move on to our next news, and we stay in the region. Chinese authorities have expanded their anti-corruption drive with the expulsion of 9 top military generals, including He Weidong, China's #2 general, and Navy Admiral Miao Hua. The Chinese Defense Ministry has stated that the officials were suspected of serious duty-related and financial crimes. These offenses are said to have extremely serious consequences. Now, most of the officials who were removed held 3-star ranks and were part of the party's central decision-making committee, with He Weidong also serving on the Politburo, which is the Communist Party's top policy-making body. Additionally, reports say that this purge combines anti-corruption efforts with political realignment and comes just days before the Communist Party's 4th plenum in Beijing, where new Central Committee members and military leaders are expected to be appointed. This anti-corruption crackdown follows months of party guidelines aimed at eliminating corrupt influences within the military and follows previous removals of senior officials, including former defense ministers and top officers of the Rocket Force Unit. Moreover, authorities have indicated that the expelled generals will face military persecution and that the move is presented as a major achievement in the party and military's anti-corruption campaign. Chinese authorities have expanded their anti-corruption drive with the expulsion of 9 top military generals, including He Weidong, China's #2 general, and Navy Admiral Miao Hua. The Chinese Defense Ministry has stated that the officials were suspected of serious duty-related and financial crimes. These offenses are said to have extremely serious consequences. Now, most of the officials who were removed held 3-star ranks and were part of the party's central decision-making committee, with He Wei-dong also serving on the Politburo, which is the Communist Party's top policy-making body. Additionally, reports say that this purge combines anti-corruption efforts with political realignment and comes just days before the Communist Party's 4th plenum in Beijing, where new Central Committee members and military leaders are expected to be appointed. This anti-corruption crackdown follows months of party guidelines. Now, for this discussion, we're joined by Andrew K.P. Long. He's a China strategist, joins us live from Luxor. Thank you very much, Andrew, for joining us today. Good to see you. Andrew, looking at this, China expelling their top military commanders, do you think this, the motive behind, what do you think was the motive behind this shakeup?
Hello, are you asking me?
Yes, Andrew. Here.
Okay, thank you very much indeed.
Thank
you. Because the anti-corruption campaign has been going on, as you know, for many, many years. It is President Xi's determination to rid the Communist Party of deep-seated corruption, which has lasted so many decades since its formation. And this corruption has poisoned the party's leadership to lead the country towards a higher level of development. And this corruption is not just in the army, it's in all parties or the party organ. Because after all, it's a one-party rule. But on the other hand, there are many rules and regulations, but these rules and regulations could be manipulated and avoided by senior officials to further their own nest. So I think the presidency has determined during his leadership, bear in mind that this is now this extended term, and that is unlikely to remain on the job indefinitely, because he's getting on in his age. So before he goes, eventually, one way or the other, he wants to leave a strong legacy, a strong foundation, turning the whole country into an advanced socialist and also relatively more developed and relatively better off country that would realize the China dream. I mean, that's his a political mandate, and it's rallying the whole country, because if you look at the degree of support of governments for its the peoples for its governments around the world, according to studies of the Harvard Kennedy School and the New York-based Democratic Barometer, the Communist Party has been held in extremely high regard by the people, compared with other political regimes, including democracies around the world. It's top ranked according to these Western think tank research. This is because the party has been leading the country into a higher level of development, sharing the fruits of its prosperity and wealth amongst the people, but also touting, gaining the trust of the government as an impartial organ for the interest of the people, rather than the private nest of party leadership. So I think that this is part of a presidency's campaign, and you can see that especially the Army and the Navy and the Air Force, these are very, very important organs to defend China's military interests. So that's what's happening.
And what do you think this suggests about domestic, maybe internal dynamics within this party? or the difference? And also, I wanted to ask, does China care about being criticized for this move? Some might even consider this move as not very democratic, right? So do you think China cares about this kind of reputation or critic from outside?
Well, I don't think so, because China is extremely, has been gaining greater and greater confidence by comparing China's ideology and political system and the success measured in terms of growing the country's wealth and influence and the welfare of the people. So on these final results, because no matter what kind of political party you have, elections is only a process. You know, the elections and the so-called democracies, they are based on multi-party elections. It's only a process. So what's the measurement? The measurement must be to what extent the people in that political system have been benefited, have their lives changed for the better, and if so, how much? You know, have the country been proceeding on a greater path of development? Have the country's international influence grow? So all these final results, on the basis of these final results, the Chinese Communist Party has been doing extremely well over the past, a number of decades. And this is because under the presidencies, under the one-party leadership, you can direct the entire country's resources towards these aims. But then, on the other hand, you've got to get rid of the corruption in that one-party system. Indeed, it's not as if it's a lot of suppression. If you look at China's been opening up gradually. China's issued visa-free access to dozens of Western countries, and then the Chinese people have been roaming around the world. I mean, if they feel so oppressed, I mean, they won't come back to China. But you see, the Chinese are curious. You can find them around all corners of the world. So I think that this Western narrative that somehow China's system is closed, that it misses the entire picture.
Right. Thank you for that insight, Andrew. Thank you very much. That was Andrew K. Long. He's a China strategist, joined us live from Luxor. Now we move on to our next news. We'll indeed take a short break over here. Thank you for watching NewsX World.